and welcome back. It's December, which means it's the last 2025 episode of the Microsoft Teams show. That means we'll not only be digesting some of the big news that we learned about Microsoft Teams from Ignite, but we'll be looking ahead to see what 2026 holds. I'm Kristian McCann from UC Today, and as always, I'm joined by Tom Arbuthnot from Empowering Cloud and our stellar panel of Microsoft Teams experts. We have a special guest, Tim Banting, Head of Research and Business Intelligence at Today's Digital Techtelligence, and he'll be dissecting the data to tell us about some trends to keep a lookout for and to prepare for. So, guys, thanks very much for coming here today. Tom, you're at Ignite. What can you tell us?
Yeah, it was a really busy and good week. So it's Microsoft back up to their big show. So it was 20,000 people altogether. I think 17,000 ticketed, and then obviously staff and Microsoft people and bits and pieces. So it was really felt like the big shows. It was interesting. San Francisco, it's like a single show center, but spread over two locations. So we were in and out. So it was the logistics were interesting at times, and some of the breakout sessions were in one of the hotels. But overall, really nice to feel back that kind of floor buzz of just a massive event. Of course, it was AI and Copilot leading the charge, but we still had a few decent team sessions as well. So it was, generally a really good show.
Excellent. Well, staying with Microsoft Ignite, Work IQ, it seems like Copilot is getting even more context designed to help you work your job and your organization. What do you think? Is Copilot becoming even more useful?
Yeah, I mean, this was my real highlight from the show, was the Work IQ messaging, and it's really an evolution of what Microsoft were doing anyway, but I just think they've put a really good brand around it. And essentially what they're trying to land with Work IQ is that Copilot's differentiator is it is baked into Microsoft 365, so it has access to all your work assets, your emails, your files, your chats, your channel messages, your transcripts, and over time even more, Entra, Places, like all that context, as well as memory of your previous kind of experiences with the Copilot. So how you like your styles, those kind of things. And it understands the wider workplace. And they kept making the comparison to connectors. So obviously there are other AI tools, Claude and ChatGPT, that can connect and pull your calendar or your email. And that's one level of kind of access to data. But 4 times during the show, they kind of put ChatGPT up and said, look, here's the query in ChatGPT. Oh, it's missed this because it was in a Teams chat and it's not scraping the Teams chat, or it missed this because it didn't see the email. So really, I think it was interesting to see Microsoft go quite aggressive on the competitiveness, and I think land well where Copilot's differentiation is, which is the kind of level of baked in context it has.
Excellent. And also at Ignite, we got Microsoft Agent 365. Agents seem to be a real big takeaway from the conference. Kevin, is this going to be a godsend for helping people to manage all these ever-increasing agents?
Well, I think, yeah. So the story in some ways started back in April of 2025. Microsoft released a work trend index report that talked about how everybody's going to evolve into being agent bosses. And, there's all these different agents. And so if you have hundreds or thousands, or there was a prediction 1.3 billion agents by 2028, I think you need something to manage all those agents, your agent workforce, if you are an agent boss. And, Agent 365 was really kind of this platform that is intended to do that. So you can kind of identify all your agents, kind of give them an identity similar to how we do with humans that work for our organizations. And then you can give them permissions or revoke permissions if they're doing bad things. You have observability to figure out what they're doing. Arguably, you're going to end up with multiple HR, agents, because everybody, a whole bunch of people create it. You'll be able to see which ones are performing better and maybe decommission the ones that are giving incorrect answers. So it was, it is a broad vision, and I think we'll see how that comes off in terms of, bringing it to bear. I am worried about, you've got Copilot confusion, because even though you got Work IQ, that purports to give you all this great information. The reality today is different co-pilots give you different answers. And I think that as you have more and more agents that are grounded and have different rules, it is going to be difficult when a different agent gives you a different answer. So you ask HR how much vacation, HR agent 1, and it tells you have X number of days. HR agent 2 gives you a different answer. And I think, maybe Agent 365 is how you figure out, which ones are giving the right answer.
So can I have an agent to ask the other agents to find out which the best answer is?
Well, and here's the thing, Tom, that's a great question because we really don't want to have to invoke these agents specifically. I just want to ask a super smart AI assistant the question, and it should, through orchestration, figure out who they ask, but that's still in the future. So now you still kind of have to mention and know who you need to ask. But if you think, that's like knowing in a 10,000, person organization, the specific person to go ask a question, and that's challenging. And I think, your question is bang on. Who do you ask which agent to ask?
I'm with you. I think like ChatGPT and OpenAI have nailed that messaging to the public quite well, which is like there is only one UI and one experience, and it's ChatGPT, and it will go and do the things for you. And I think we're on that same kind of journey. Like it's great if there's obviously a technical value to agents in that they're very narrowly scoped. So if you know you want to do a thing and it's your day-to-day work process and you can customize it, I can see the logic of wanting to ping the Kevin research box. I've tuned it to the nth degree to my experience. But I think in that HR example, I'd much rather just ask a question and it use its memory skills and knowledge to pick the right answer. And if that's a sub agent, so be it. I don't really care.
Staying with agents, Teams channel agents advances with MCP. So Teams channel agents will now be able to connect to third-party apps and agents. Is Teams being used as a platform to orchestrate your various AIs around your workflow, Kevin?
Yeah, I think it's interesting, the evolution of Teams. So Teams was the place the hub where work gets done. And now it's really the hub where you manage all your agents. Because if increasingly, if the world is shifting to this frontier firm where we're managing more agents as opposed to like messaging people, we're going to be messaging agents. I really like this idea. The one part I like about this is when you have your AI assistant, I have my AI assistant, that's really a one-to-one. And so I could share the results of a prompt. I really like this idea of a team sport. So in a channel, being able to, have all of us talk to an agent, see the results, do a follow-up query. So I like the idea. And then, of course, MCP allows potentially me to go and then talk to all my different applications. I know there was CEOs that are saying, I never want to go into Jira or ServiceNow, or, I'm just going to stay in my AI assistant and say, hey, what are the things that I need to know about today? So I think that you'll see Teams becoming, or they're trying to make it be the place where you basically control and manage all of your agents.
Yeah, I think this is very specifically an interesting use case, which is channel agents. So the theory is you're using channels properly, which is a challenge. Lots of customers don't. But imagine you've got a project and then you've got a development channel, and everything about development happens in that channel. So you have your meetings, so you have all your transcripts, you have your chat. But this connects your Jira, for example. So it connects your ticketing system. So now the agent has all the conversational context and the ticketing system. And they just put on the roadmap, I think it was the day after Ignite, file access as well. So having the files in that channel, aka SharePoint. So it's a really interesting use case. Again, it's about scoping. So this is scoped to that specific channel. So if I'm a team of 5 working on development of that project, we can all talk to that agent, and it's very narrowly and tightly scoped to that context, which is great. But if you then want to know about the wider project, now you want all the data in the team, not the channel. So it's a different use case and therefore a different experience. But MCP generally is really exciting. Like the ability to start in chat and reach through to line of business apps is really powerful. So good to see that coming, and I hope we see more MCP turn up in different scenarios.
Yeah, I just let me add one thing because I think people should be aware of this. It's like when these agents or MCP, when it reaches out to these other sources of knowledge, it's really unclear right now what the limitations of that are. So, for example, if I say, what is the important email that Ryan sent me? For example, it doesn't look at the email from the beginning of time. There's arbitrary limits. And so I worry that, you ask and you think it's like even on SharePoint, like people have said, well, if I've got 50,000 documents in my SharePoint site, it's not clear that all of those are indexed, and surfaced. So I think that as we, connect to these other data sources, there needs to be a better job by Microsoft to say, hey, I only looked at the last 2 months of emails. So if Tim sent me something important 2 years ago, um, I'm not going to find that, but it doesn't mean it doesn't exist, right? So the more sources you connect to, I think we have to do a better job collectively explaining what the limitations are.
Yeah, I'd love to see that too, like a straight in the reply to be like my window is 90 days or whatever it may be. We had that challenge in Teams as well, that the channel agent and meeting agent and general Copilot agent all had different context windows or length of time they went back. That we're slowly solving that with the unified Copilot, but even so, it still has a window for those queries a lot of times.
It's also just on a different front, kind of interesting. I think that MCP is super exciting and easy. I think there's this sense that all you have to do is just input the credentials of your MCP server, and all of a sudden everything is going to work. And so I think there is some work, and I think folks just need to understand. I can go connect HubSpot via MCP, and is the agent going to know through this MCP server to be able to, once it gets to HubSpot, how does it work on that side in terms of finding the data, getting the right report? I guess there's just a sense that it's just magic. And so I think that it's true that it's very easy to connect MCP, but in terms of what happens after that, I think there's the kind of devil is in the details.
You mean the M doesn't stand for magic, Ryan? I thought that's what it was.
Not yet, until marketing get hold of it.
Well, so it seems like there was a lot of conversation about MCP. Obviously, very exciting development from Ignite. Moving on, but staying with agents, Microsoft Teams now has an admin agent that can autonomously handle IT tasks like meeting, monitoring, and user provisioning. Kevin, is this a lifeline for overworked IT teams?
Yeah, well, I think it is. Like that's the good part of it. Like I think about the extension in the future. Like how long does a Teams admin still have a job? Because does your Copilot in TAC, take over most of the job, right? And I did ahead of this. I did ask, Gemini and ChatGPT, and how many years will it be before the IT admin role goes away? And it thought that that's going to be longer in the future. But if you're doing tier 1 and tier 2 types of things, I think you better start like expanding your role. And the suggestion, I think, from both ChatGPT and Gemini, which I think is a good one, and I think Tim's going to talk about this later, is shift over to doing things like governance, and some architecture stuff. So I think that in the short term, this is a really good thing. But maybe in the medium term, AI puts us all out of work. So just keep learning new skills if you're a Teams admin.
No, you're not listening to the marketing, Kevin. It's getting rid of the drudgery so we can do higher impacting things.
Yeah, in the short term. But then when the drudgery becomes everything, and then when it's doing these podcasts using avatars, then we'll all be looking for other things to do.
If you're doing tier 1 or tier 2 anything in life that's non-physical, I think you got to start looking up. Yeah.
Oh yeah, workflow is the exciting development area at the moment for sure. I mean, the good value thing here is that I'm excited about, and it's a bit of a split story at the moment. There's a Teams Admin Center Copilot agent, there's an agent in the Pro Portal, and there's a different agent in TAC which is proactive. So it feels like we're back where we were with M365 Copilot with people experimenting. But if you think about Teams, it's now a massive configuration surface. It has so many capabilities. It's an app platform. It has events, webinars, broadcast, all the external access policies. And like a lot of us spend a lot of time following the space, and it's still tough. So imagine if you're a generalist admin and you're asked to configure an event, like in theory, Copilot could guide you through that exact experience. Like, do you want external people or not? Do you want lobby? Do you want green room? Do you want this? Do you want this? So I'm really excited about the potential to help people grapple with, what are quite big products, especially if they're multidisciplinary in an organization.
Okay, so moving on from agents, we're now going to talk a little bit about Copilot. So Copilot Chat, the free version, has got a lot of added value. Tom, can you give us a rundown of the features?
Yeah, this was another one that Ignite was really interesting to hear. Is I think the first couple of years of Copilot, Microsoft have fairly aggressively been pushing the M365 Copilot $30 per user paid version. And indeed, at Ignite, we got an announcement that there's going to be a $21 business level version of that. So like a discounted version, same features, but for business SKUs. So that was nice to see. But a large part of the show news was about pushing value into the included in every M365 seat Copilot Chat. The marketing's brilliant here, that the free version is a subset of the paid version's name. But putting that aside, it's got GPT-5 now. You can access and interact with your entire Outlook inbox. You'll have what Microsoft call agent mode in Word, Excel, and PowerPoint. So that is Copilot embedded into the app that can engage with a current open document. So imagine telling it to, bold all the headings, summarize this paragraph, actually interact with the open document. And they've even gone as far as, if your tenant enables them, enabling some of the Anthropic advanced creation scenarios in line of business apps, i.e. Word, Excel, PowerPoint, with the included tier. So yes, Microsoft are obviously keen to push you up to the paid tier if they can, but I think from an adoption perspective, they're quite keen just to get the ball rolling with people with the included tier. So it was nice to see so much value being pumped into what is no extra cost for pretty much all customers.
This is super exciting. One of the challenges, I guess, from an end customer perspective is just understanding where that line now sits between the unpaid and paid versions, which has become increasingly difficult to explain. And so I think this is one of the areas where we've seen customers who had plans to purchase paid versions of M365 Copilot, thinking that why would I need to do that? Not really understanding kind of the rest of kind of graph integrated access and kind of what that means. And so I think for lay executives looking at these projects, this is exceedingly confusing, as they now used to think that it was getting access to Copilot inside the Office apps, or getting access to it inside Outlook in a meaningful way. And so this is super exciting. I think we're going to have to fine tune the messaging a little bit to help people appreciate exactly what the uplift is to the M365 full Copilot.
Excellent. And also, staying with you on Copilot, Ryan, Copilot can now take voice commands on mobiles. You can even draft emails, pull meeting summaries, all hands-free. Can you really consider yourself seeing that you'd use it on your morning commute?
It is game-changing for me on my morning commute, because I am already saying, walk me through my calendar for the day. Did I get an email from this person yesterday afternoon? Walk me through all of the details of it. It is, I think we know in general that voice is really the most kind of effective for most people way to interact with AI, and having access from mobile and sitting at your desk as well. This is super powerful. But yeah, I think it is incredibly useful to have work data available via voice in the mobile app. And I think that as people begin to see and have access, or if you left a meeting early and you want to grab a summary from a meeting and get that verbally, it's I think game changing.
Excellent. Well, that wraps up our news segment of the show. We will soon speak to our special guest, but before that, Tom, what events can we look forward to this festive season?
Yeah, so it's obviously coming up to the festive break, so it's rounding down for in-person events. We've got some great online events coming up. So we've got the usual Microsoft Teams devices Ask Us Anything on the 17th. We've got a really special Copilot Fireside Chat also on the 17th. We've got 3 great product leaders from Microsoft, so a bit of a panel about what's gone on Copilot for the whole of 25 and what's coming into 26. And then last event for us in December is our usual Microsoft 365 Change Community Roundup. And next in person will be the 11th of February in Manchester. So our second Manchester user group. We had a really great one just last week, our first one. So looking forward to that. And then ISE will be around the corner, and that'll be all the Teams devices news, which I'm really excited about.
Excellent. Wow. Now, our next exciting part of the show is our special guest. Tim Banting is the head of research and business intelligence at Today's Digital Techtelligence, and where he provides enterprise technology and intelligence services. In his role, he unifies extensive first-party data assets across multiple technology sectors to seek out the ongoing interests and trends. We thought it'd be a great idea to have him on this show so he could tell us about the trends he's seeing upcoming, and we all know what to expect in the year ahead. So, Tim, great to have you on the show.
Thank you, Kristian. Pleasure to be here.
So, let's start with a basic and broad one. When you think about Microsoft Teams in 2026, what comes to mind?
Yeah, well, I see a platform that's clearly transitioned into a full digital workplace that Kevin alluded to earlier. I think the challenge, though, is that it's still somewhat complicated for the average user. And I think there's too many features that hide behind menus or tabs. And for most people, they only just scratch the surface of what's a very powerful platform. So what I'm really encouraged about in Teams, and what I'd like to see in 2026, is more intelligence and less buttons. I think we're seeing more momentum on things beyond intelligent meeting summaries. That's yesterday's news. I'd like to see something that helps people simplify meetings and gets ahead of deadlines and chooses better and simpler ways to collaborate. So a system that actually you could ask, you're inviting 12 people to this meeting, only 4 need to be here. Let's switch this to a Teams channel and communicate asynchronously. So I think there's ways in which you can simplify that workflow, or even things like follow a framework, like who's responsible, who's accountable, who's supporting the project, who should be consulted, who should be informed. And I think if you can add that layer of intelligence, and if you have a meeting where you've identified those roles up front, you're not going to start wasting people's valuable time. And I think that's where Microsoft is headed, and I think that's where we're seeing some signs there. In terms of the sort of buying intent data, what I'm really interested in is where Microsoft is really focusing on the AI risk, the security, and the compliance in UC, because between 10 to 15,000 companies every month are actively researching that. So we're seeing these great big spikes on a weekly basis around compliance across UC environments. So that's where I sort of pose those questions around governance frameworks and what is that in terms of frameworks and roadmaps, because that regulatory pressure is really reshaping how enterprises are justifying those UC investments.
Excellent. You gave some great numbers about some of the buyer intent. I was wondering, could you walk through us some of the other signals or observations about Microsoft Teams that you're seeing that are really standing out?
I think what we're seeing is, as I said, SEC regulation. I think that's the number one topic, both on a weekly and fortnightly basis. We're seeing nearly 400% increase in that. So that's clearly a really big focus area around SEC and GLBA and financial controls and that sort of thing. So I think what we're seeing is that sort of pressure on auditability, observability, record retention, data residency. All of those things are really becoming top of mind. There's a lot of research going on and a lot of buyers that are actively researching that at the moment. The other area that I find really interesting, and I don't think that we saw too much about that at Ignite, only that there's this misperception that people think that Big Brother's watching you because Teams will automatically detect, where you're connecting on your Wi-Fi router, whether or not you're in the office or in the coffee shop or whatever. But there's an awful lot of information around or intent around workplace strategy that sort of spans office space and analytics. So we're seeing nearly 26,000 spiking businesses a week looking at what on earth's going on with office space, trends, the dynamic workplace, what's going on in the hybrid office. Oddly, that hasn't gone away. There hasn't been the wholesale return to the office. There isn't everyone still working remotely. And there's a lot of focus around how you can make the best out of a workplace strategy. And I'll be interested to hear from the panel what happened with regards to Microsoft Places and whether or not there's any announcements there on how you can optimize for that workplace strategy.
Excellent. From a user perspective, what do you think a lot of users of Teams are really kind of looking for in 2026? Is it this sort of agent, this ability to adopt agents in your workflow from Teams, or?
Well, I think, as the panel spoke about, there's the introduction of channel agents, meeting agents, Teams Mode for Copilot, and that new facilitator tool that's designed to guide work. So I think that's going to be really good from a user perspective. You've got Work IQ that's adding that context awareness, and you've got that Copilot Studio that opens that door to customized automation. But I think Teams still suffers from feature sprawl. So you've got Loop, you've got Whiteboard, Planner, Tasks, Viva Goals. Anyone remember Viva? That was a big topic a few years ago. And they're all offering ways to organize work, but it overlaps in so many ways that most people ignore half of them. Things like meeting controls, Q&A, and options like breakout rooms, they're hidden behind 2 or 3 menus. So I think there's still a lot that needs to be done on the user experience. And you've got things like those apps like Shifts and Approvals and Lists. They barely see the light of day unless someone goes looking for them. So I think Microsoft is trying to fix that by making AI taking the lead, but whether or not users actually feel that that simplification is there is going to be the big test.
Well, so looking at Ignite and looking at where Microsoft was going with their direction, how do you think Teams is going to fit into the wider picture of Microsoft as a company, you know, especially as they pursue AI heavily and so on?
Well, I think Teams is definitely that new front door to the entire Microsoft 365 ecosystem. And it's where Copilot lives. It's where SharePoint content appears. It's where Azure AI feeds in and where security and compliance sort of controls that surface area. And I think Ignite reinforced that with deeper integrations and new APIs. And as Tom said, better cross-tenant collaboration and more of those AI-focused workflows. But I think taking advantage of that ecosystem isn't cheap. So we spoke about Copilot licensing sitting on top of existing subscriptions. But organizations often get pushed from the E3 plan to E5 plan to unlock the full set of security and compliance features. And then obviously behind the scenes, AI work incurs that sort of Azure metered costs. That is the hidden element that no one really discusses. So I think that although Teams is very powerful, it's tied to a larger cost stack, as it were, that CIOs are increasingly aware of or are finally getting to grips with.
Excellent. And what challenges or opportunities stood out to you when it comes to Microsoft directions with Teams? You obviously talked about being in the front door for AI. You know, it's integrated with a lot of M365. What could you tell us about your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think Microsoft's biggest challenge is coherence, really, because Teams has evolved so quickly, and the result for the end user experience can be a fragmented experience. So, I mean, even the new client sort of reflects the old architectural decisions that Microsoft has made over the years. So I think the opportunity is consolidation. And I think that Microsoft is finally trying to unify those work areas and collaboration platforms and AI insights all together. Obviously, meeting recaps and all of the artifacts from that is improving. So Teams rooms and that ability is also maturing. I think that cross-tenant work could become smoother. But I think the takeaway really is the Ignite announcements have shown more of a move towards guided intelligent workflows rather than just features layered on top of features. So if Microsoft can make that feel like one system, Teams will become far easier to use and a lot more valuable to organizations.
Excellent. So we've heard a lot about how Microsoft's own internal machinations could really affect Teams. What about externally? Are there external factors that you think could really affect Teams in the coming year?
Well, I think, as I sort of highlighted to earlier, regulation is still that pressure point. And I think the forced unbundling in the EU of Microsoft and Teams, selling it separately, and we might find other regions might follow. We're seeing AI competition that's intensifying, obviously. And every collaboration platform now offers a lot of the table stakes features like meeting summaries and meeting recaps, call translation, call transcription. And I think that Microsoft is going to need to show that its agents and workflow intelligence genuinely saves time and not just a documented features. So I still think there's companies out there looking for the ROI and looking for ways in which that save time can equate to business value. And then, of course, those cost pressures matter as well. So as I said, you've got the Copilot premiums, you've got the E5 requirements for additional security and compliance, and that Azure metering, it makes that total cost a major factor and sometimes a hidden factor. So I think teams will be increasingly be evaluated on the real outcomes and not just roadmap promises. And I think those hidden costs are going to have to be surfaced somehow. And there's going to have to be some cost predictability sort of surface somewhere. Otherwise, the more successful you are with AI and workflow automation, the further up that price increases.
Excellent. And I suppose lastly from me, if you were talking to an IT lead and he wants to prepare for the year ahead, what would you say that person should be looking for or prepping for indeed?
I think for me, it would be that workflow automation. That's what I would love to see. Some Copilot that could say there's too many attendees on this meeting, move this to an asynchronous communication, do it in loop, or record a meeting and then post the Q&A in a channel. Or you haven't replied to Tim's email and the deadline's Tuesday. Give me the information that Tim requires. And I think, if we look at Ignite, it's shown some early indication of that with Work IQ and Facilitator and the new AI agents. But I think if Microsoft can weave that into a consistent experience, Teams is going to be shifting from a busy interface that few people know their real way around to becoming a real reliable guide to day-to-day work.
Excellent. Well, that is all from my end, Tim, but I will open it up to the floor. So, folks, does anyone have a question for Tim's 2026 analysis and predictions?
Yeah, Tim, I'd be interested if people are genuinely competing UC platforms against each other anymore, or if they've largely picked a horse, and if they are competing, are they thinking about phone features and messaging features anymore, or is it more like line of business integration and workflow?
Well, that's excellent. I think, Tom, what we're seeing is different layers now. It's no longer I want meetings, I want voice, I want chat. It's all about, right, I've got that conversational layer, I've got that collaboration layer, I've got that AI layer. So now we're seeing a lot of decisions based on best of suite. That seems to be what's leading this approach, because people want something that's predictable, that's well integrated, easy to manage, easy to sort of work within. So I think what we're seeing is a lot more people thinking of these as different layers rather than technology platform stacks. I don't know what you guys are you seeing the same, or that's the feel I'm getting.
Yeah, I mean, my world is kind of biased towards working with Microsoft customers, so I talk to them a lot. But it's interesting. I was reading the latest Gartner UCAS Magic Quadrant, and I was like, a lot of these things they're comparing are just complete table stakes and pretty much the same across all the platforms. It's much more about now governance and like where the data is, and obviously with AI, how easily I can get to that data and weave that data into my workflow. So I think to a certain extent, you could swap out WebEx, Zoom, and Teams for basic meetings and get similar experience. They're all pretty good now. Where it starts to differentiate away is line of business workflows, management, integration. And I think that's where Microsoft's strength obviously lies as a suite, is that tight integration.
Absolutely. And that productivity message it resonates so hard now as we start looking across enterprises that are trying to do more with less. If you can automate that workflow, and some of that will require AI, some of it can be basic functionality that hasn't been tapped into the Microsoft ecosystem yet. So I think that's where we're getting to, is that best of suite approach across all of it. And we're seeing more of a horizontal layer rather than these sort of vertical stacks.
Yeah, I think one of the things, like if you extend what Ryan said about talking to Copilot, and I really find, like, originally, like Copilot on your iPhone, it didn't have access to your work data, so it was limited, but you could have a really good conversation. And I think one of the things that's interesting is George Patero of Microsoft said they created that separate Copilot desktop app because they couldn't get people to go into the Teams Copilot Chat. And if you look at the numbers of people that are going and starting their day in Chat GPT, it's 800, 900 million. What happens when, like Ryan in his car, like, I want to prepare for a meeting with you, Tim, and I say, hey, Copilot, help me prepare for a meeting with Tim. And then we have this dialogue, and I'm like, okay, what did we talk about last time? And then I ask questions about, well, what's that report that, Kristian published or what have you? And all of that's voice. As more and more of that is a voice natural interface, does that diminish the UI for Teams and any other application, because the primary interface becomes voice? So in some ways, the more successful Copilot voice is, it's almost Microsoft competing with themselves, because I just talk to, I just tell me what you want, as opposed to going into a UI.
As you were talking about that, Kevin, I got a flashback to Microsoft Cortana. Do you remember those days where we were all going to do everything through Cortana? Yeah.
So that may be the other thing I just wanted for the audience, Tim, is talk a little bit, just briefly, about kind of the signals that you pull in, because I think it's interesting, because you talk about the dark funnel. You and I have talked about that, but maybe explain kind of where you're getting some of these insights, because I think that it's more than opinion. It's based on some very interesting data that you kind of collate.
Thank you, Kevin. So we go out to verify, we verify the domains of people that are searching on various different channels. Our own assets included at Today Digital, like CX Today and UC Today, but other sort of research houses and other areas. There's a network of thousands that we go out to. So we can see, the types of people that are making these researches. And what I tend to do is I look at we have a 90-day baseline, so that we know that, like, the Ignite conference isn't going to cause this spike. And then we compare that against 90 days, the quarter data, the 30 days, 2 weeks, and 7 days. And we can see these great big research spikes as these sort of topics become top of mind for all of these companies. And they're large companies, over 1,000 user enterprises. So we go out and we pull all that data in from all of those verified research houses and tech publications and other sources. And we bring it all into one area where we can see, what's rising in terms of interest, and also what's dropping off. Sometimes it's interesting to see what's dropping off.
Yeah, and that's great, as you said, like you said, buyer intent. But those signals are very powerful to say, if people are researching this and there's a big spike, and then they get to, I guess, answers that make them happy, then that's probably going to move into a purchase decision. So I just wanted you to explain that, because I think that's fascinating data.
It is. I mean, we do get tens of thousands of companies every week looking at things like AI governance and security. And of course, that is going to be a hot topic. And if you're a vendor that's just concentrating on all of the AI magic fairy dust stuff and all the wonderful things that it can do, and ignoring that, you're not going to get a great deal of people putting you on a short list. So it's almost like having tens of thousands or even hundreds of thousands of voice of the customer signals coming in, and we're sifting through that to make sense of it. So it's quite a powerful combination.
Yeah, fascinating. Thank you.
Okay, so that's it for Microsoft Teams show for 2025. Next time you'll see us, it'll be 2026. I want to thank Tom, our special guest Tim, and our expert panel as always. And also thank you for all of you, the audience, for tuning in. We'll be back in 2026, so do stay tuned. But in the meantime, do not stay muted. Please like, share, and subscribe. It really helps the channel. So, thanks very much for tuning in. I'm Kristian McCann from UC Today, and until next time, stay connected.